you're in the right place. This is the Eatfluencer Podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Maggie Landis. Together, we are going to unpack everything about eating and discover the what, when, and how that will let you lead your best life. This is not your doctor's conversation about nutrition. Today is when you can start to love eating again. Let food be food and you be you. Get ready to get eatfluenced. Welcome back to the Eatfluencer Podcast. I'm Maggie Landis, and I'm so glad you are joining me this week. This is episode 68, which I've called Using Self-Compassion in Diet Culture Recovery. And I have a guest for you today, Dr. Ellen Albertson, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her in a moment. But I want to remind you that we are now in season 2 of this podcast, have been going for about a year and a half now. And if you are listening to this content here, any of the podcasts, really, any of the episodes you've enjoyed, you've learned something, you felt connected with, if you could take a moment and leave a rating or review on your podcast player, that would be fabulous. That's my ask for you this week. It's more than just a little pat on my back for the effort I do producing this. It really helps the algorithm distribute this content to the right people more often, so that other people like you who are searching for this information about diet culture, about weight stigma, about health at every size, all the things we talk about here, they will be more likely to find it. So that's my ask. Now let's talk about what we're going to talk about. All right, this week. Self-compassion is Dr. Albertson's wheelhouse, and she also is known as the Midlife Whisperer. That's her trademarked term. And the idea of midlife women having self-compassion and using that to recover from our experiences in diet culture was something I knew I needed to hear. I needed to have this conversation, and I thought that you all would be very interested in this too. Now, let me set this up by saying Dr. Ellen Albertson got more credentials than I've ever seen. Like, frankly, I think she says I've got more degrees than a thermometer, and that's kind of true. I couldn't even fit all the letters that are after her name on the cover art for this week's episode. So suffice it to say, she is a very educated, very experienced, highly intelligent scientist, author, educator, coach, and has a lot to say. I loved my conversation with her because, I like this kind of heady psychology stuff myself. This is a little bit of a longer episode, so I want to just give you that warning that if it seems like it's going on and on, there are gems being dropped throughout the content. So if it's too much for you to listen to at one time, pause it and come back. Just make sure you hear everything that Dr. Albertson has to say, because it's really valuable in our diet culture recovery, understanding what is self-compassion, what are the kind of core elements of this grace we have with ourselves, this self-respect. It's kind of a combination of respect and grace and understanding and, appreciation and gratitude. It's all wrapped up in that. And we need to have that accessible when we realize we've spent years and decades of our life doing something, aka diet culture, that did not serve us. It's easy to feel guilty and maybe even ashamed, like you should have known better, you should be smarter than that, you shouldn't have been so easily fooled, you should have, figured this out a long time ago, whatever it is. This tool of using self-compassion will take you that next step out of those feelings. And Dr. Albertson has got a lot to say about that. So I want to read her formal bio here. The other little tidbit I should tell you about this episode, when I started recording it, there was like a glitch at the beginning of the audio. So the first roughly about 5 minutes of our conversation did not record. And so when we cut over to the interview and it sounds like we're picking up in the middle of a sentence, that's because we are picking up in the middle of a sentence. But you'll figure out right away what we're talking about, and you will not be lost, I promise. So just know that that's not your podcast player jumping around. That was an error in my audio file. But let me read you her bio, and we will get right into this conversation. This week's guest is Ellen Albertson, who is a psychologist, a registered dietitian, national board certified health and wellness coach, Reiki Master, and mindful self-compassion teacher. Known as the Midlife Whisperer, she helps women raise their vibration so they have energy, confidence, and clarity to make their next chapter their best chapter. She is a best-selling author, speaker, and an expert on women's well-being. She's appeared on Extra, the Food Network, NBC World News, has been quoted in Psychology Today, Eating Well, USA Today, has written 5 books and multiple articles for Self Magazine, Better Homes and Gardens, Good Housekeeping, and her most recent book is titled Rock Your Midlife, 7 Steps to Transform Yourself and Make Your Next Chapter Your Best Chapter. She has over 25 years of experience in counseling, coaching, and healing through her holistic practice and transformational work. She currently lives on the Champlain Islands of Vermont, and I don't think she's moving anytime soon, as much as she told me she loves it, with her high-tech, raw food-loving partner, Ken, and their tree-climbing border collie, Rosie. I've got links to her website and her social media profile in the show notes if you're interested in seeing more of her content after we finish this conversation today. So let's get into the discussion of self-compassion with Dr. Ellen Albertson. And we're angry at diet culture when we figure out how manipulative and sort of deceptive all this has been, but we're kind of mad at ourselves. At least I can say for myself, I was like, I can't believe how dumb I was. I mean, how gullible I was to believe that all these things I did for 30 years were going to fix me in air quotes, or make my life somehow this, like, unlock the rest of my life. Right. So to me, that requires the self-compassion piece that I think a lot of us don't even understand how to initiate that. Right.
Well, let's talk about what self-compassion is. And it's so important, which is why it's really the second step, self-compassion, self-love. It's the second step in my book, Rock Your Midlife, because it changes everything. I know for myself, it changed my relationship with myself, my relationship with my body. I mean, I was that 40-year-old woman, personal fitness trainer, dietitian in front of the group X, lifting 20-pound dumbbells over my head, loathing my body. Like I could not, I mean, I would go to sleep counting calories. I get on the scale and never happy, never satisfied, because body image is, it's in your head, not actually in your body. But the first step, is learning self-compassion. That was so fascinating about my research. That's simply learning to treat yourself the way you would a good friend. Reduces body shame, body dissatisfaction, self-worth based on appearance, and improves body appreciation. So simply saying, I'm not even going to focus on the food and the diet. I'm going to focus on that relationship I have with myself. And that's really the essence of self-compassion. And it's also correlated with things like, intuitive eating, mindful eating. So I think the first step, we need to, if we look at the 3 elements of self-compassion, the first is being kind to ourselves rather than judgmental. So instead of saying, oh my God, I was so stupid, how could I be that way? Just being kind, saying, you know what? This wasn't my fault. I forgive myself. I was doing my best. I was, we were
with the information we had at the time. We thought that was what we were supposed to do. We were supposed to count calories and do jazzercise and eat fat-free cheese and,
Well, if the diet industry told you the truth, there wouldn't be a diet industry, right? So we have this problem. And then they're like, okay, here's this magic bullet solution. Just like eat this or follow that, or even let's just like, let's sugarcoat it and call it something else. Right. But it's still, even these organizations it's still a diet. But so we were doing our best. So that's being kind to yourself rather than judgmental, saying, you know what, or even thinking, gosh, what would I say to a good friend who came to me and said, oh my God, I'm so mad at myself for doing this for so many years. I feel so stupid. We'd say, it's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So why is that so hard to apply to ourselves? Because what you're saying sounds extremely, I guess, obvious, like in sort of a simplistic thing to do, but most of us don't do that. We are way more critical and negative towards ourself than we are to other people. The things that we say to ourselves, if we said out loud to our spouse or our best friend or our mom or our child, it would be awful, right?
Right. We
But we
wouldn't
don't.
have friends, but
Yeah,
what it is,
right.
well,
That's
it's
true. Yeah.
helpful. It's helpful to make friends with your self-critic to understand that your self-critic is trying to help you. So the self-critic is the internalized voice of early caregivers. So when we're young, our mom says, clean your plate and stay skinny, right? Or get good grades, clean your room, kids should be seen and not heard, all of this stuff. When we're, 6, 7, 8, 10 years old, if we don't follow what our caregivers tell us, we are in danger of not being cared for and not being loved. And, the 8-year-old self is still driving the ship. I may be, I'm almost 60 and it's like 50, 60, 40, that internal voice, that critic is the voice of early caregivers that we internalize. And we think that we actually need the self-critic in order to motivate us to, lose weight, be better, do better at whatever we're trying to work on. But what the research really shows is that when we criticize ourselves, we generate cortisol, which of course is the chemical of fight or flight. It, increases inflammation. It actually increases appetite. It shuts you down. It shuts down motivation. So the first thing is to understand, well, my self-critic, all right, that's that voice. Notice, where is that coming from when I judge myself and say, gosh, I was so stupid to go on these diets for so many years. How does that feel in your body? Emotions are felt experiences in the body. So start to notice and say, gee, talk back to her, say, okay, I know you're trying to help me, but this isn't very helpful. Maybe give her a new voice, a new role. So a lot of times I'll have clients give their self-critic as a trigger to practice self-compassion, and then start making friends with this self-compassionate voice. Maybe write a self-compassionate letter to yourself, dear me, dear Jane, I know you've been struggling with your weight for your whole life and you feel really bad because you were looking to the diet industry, to diets as a solution because they told you that it was going to work. But you know what? You made a mistake and it's okay. It's not your fault. This is just the diet industry. And, I love you because you're smart and you're beautiful and you're capable and you're so full of love and kindness. And you make the best chocolate chip cupcakes on the planet, whatever it is. write that letter to yourself, right? About all of those amazing things that actually shows that will raise your self-compassion. Write it, mail it to yourself, open it up, and then read it and then take it in. So first thing is that first element, be kind to yourself rather than judgmental. The second element is called common humanity, which simply says we all make mistakes. We all are flawed human beings. Stress, struggle, suffering happens to everybody. It's part of the human condition. So you made a mistake. My God, how many mistakes have all of us made? And so you don't feel so isolated and alone when you realize that making mistakes, and it wasn't your fault, of course, because we've all been, given this pile of crap that we're supposed to
it's hardly
follow.
a mistake because at the time it seemed like a very good decision, right? I mean, that's why we did it. Yeah.
Because what happens is the media shows us we've got this issue. We're supposed to be thin and young. Young is another thing. And if we're not, then there's something wrong with us. And our self-worth for women is largely based on our appearance. And we think, well, gee, if I lose weight, then I'll feel good about myself and I'll be happy. So, but we realize, you bought this stuff. We're flawed human beings. We make mistakes. So forgive yourself. And then the last piece is mindfulness. So self-compassion, it's the being kind, this common humanity, the mindfulness. When you notice that these thoughts come up or some suffering happens to you around, you see a diet and part of you is like, oh my God, I should try that. Or you're being hard on yourself. You give yourself what you need to think, what do I really need right now? And, then the thing about weight is, and we talked about this a little bit off the air, is that it seems like a metric that is concrete. And looking at something like, well, what do I do? And when I work with clients or, people reading the book, start with, how do I be happy now? We always think, when I lose the weight, then I'll find the man, then I'll get the good job. I'll ask for the raise. I'll take that. How many people say, I'll go on the beach and wear a bathing suit when I lose the weight? I'm not going to take that trip until I lose the weight. So, and part of it is that I think we have some fears around doing these big things we want to do, our bucket list, right? And so we're actually a little scared. So it's like, it becomes this, it has a specificity to it, but it also has a way of preventing us from that second adulthood, from doing those things we really want to do. But I think the self-compassion piece, what's magical about self-compassion is simply practicing that really, it works on a very deep subconscious level. When you start to love yourself, you can't call yourself, say, I was stupid. You can't beat yourself up anymore. It's like you become your best friend. You can't do that negative self-talk anymore.
Right. So a lot of this second adulthood, I mean, to me, what I'm hearing and what I'm envisioning is this: we sort of have this, we're looking forward instead of back, and we have an opportunity, instead of like to look at the loss, if you want to call it that, or whatever is been missing in our up till now life. And I mean, I can tell you for myself, I don't know if you even know this, Ellen, but I actually am a cancer survivor. I had cancer at the age of 40, and that changed my perspective regarding all these things, because I think there's a time you realize that, like, I'm only going to have one go round. Like, this is like, my life is not infinite. I think even up until you have even maybe a personal crisis or something very close to you, there's this little bit of you thinking like, you can wait for the weight loss to do the things because it will eventually happen. But like, I kind of realized, like, okay, I can sit here waiting and it's never going to be enough. I mean, it's never, we're all looking to the next person and then that person's looking to the next person, and like, there is no end. I have not yet met a woman who's like, I am just enough. I am totally, comfortable with my well-being and my health and my body and everything. I don't have a second thought ever. I mean, we'll never get out of this space if we are constantly waiting for our, self-worth to like unlock behind the scale or behind whatever it is, right? It's like a ransom almost. And I think you're right. That scale is objective, and it's kind of finite and small, and it's a number. And it has, for many women, become part of our identity. Is we are dieters, we pursue weight loss, our goal is to be thin, and it has been forever. And it's like, we know that's not exceptionally valuable, but it's something, like you said, concrete, and we can, write it in our journal. We can track it in our app. We can put a little checkbox on the wall. How do we let go of that without feeling like some sort of security blanket is being like taken away? Right.
Yeah. Well, I think as we do that, first of all, I didn't know about your being a cancer survivor. So I'm glad that you have found your way through that struggle. I'm sorry that you had to experience that.
Well, it was a terrible experience, but in retrospect, now that I'm on the other side and I'm in remission and I'm healthy, I'm like, I'm kind of glad. I tell people all the time, and this is just a side note, I say everybody should have a near-death experience where they don't actually die, because I think it's life-changing. Now, of course, if you knew that you weren't going to die, it wouldn't have the same impact as thinking you're going to actually die and not dying. But anyway,
I went blind. So literally,
yeah.
I went blind. My retina detached. I don't have, my left eye is not great, and my right eye is my functioning eye, and my retina detached 3 times, and I literally went blind. So that wasn't a cancer, but I understand that wake up call we have. But to get back to your question, it doesn't happen overnight. And I am here to say, I am a woman who, I love myself. I accept myself. I love my health. I feel fabulous. I don't have the energy I had when I was, 30, 40, but I really am just digging who I am and where I'm at. And I don't have, those thoughts really don't go by very much in my head anymore. And I really credit the self-compassion, because the research really shows it works both ends. Stress, anxiety, depression goes down, and well-being, optimism, hope, all of those things go up. So it's like a parachute and a life vest. But when people are starting, I think the first thing to realize is it's not going to happen overnight.
Uh-huh.
You've got these things in your brain. You've got this part of your brain, just like, if you think about if I learn a language or an instrument, we have parts of our brains that have grooves in them with certain kind of talk and certain kind of ways of being. And it's a large part of a lot of women's identities. It's like, as you said, diet culture. This is what I do. So it's not going to happen overnight.
We've done it for 30 or 40 years. We're not going to unravel this by listening to a couple of podcasts and reading a book, right?
Right. And it's not as easy as something as, I'm not saying it's easy to quit smoking or alcohol, but with food, we have to still eat and nourish ourselves. Like if I'm like, okay, I'm going to quit smoking, I'm going to stop drinking, I'm going to work on these things.
You're like totally abstinent, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But you can't do that with food, and nor should we, because food is, an enjoyable part of life. So it takes time. And obviously there's people like yourself, myself, who are here to support you. There's a whole, culture out there who are supporting a new way of being around this. So as these thoughts and difficulties come up, question those thoughts. I should be dieting. I shouldn't eat those. So when you question your thoughts and you also notice, how am I feeling? What's the emotion? So maybe I'm feeling stress. Maybe I'm feeling anxiety. So noticing, name it, you tame it. So naming, this is anxiety. I'm having this anxious thought around my, eating habits. I have this fear that if I let go of the scale, I don't step on it, I don't, track everything I'm eating, that I'm at this fear, I'm going to gain all of this weight. So name it, you tame it. And what that does is it takes it away from the kind of subconscious place in your brain that's actually driving the ship, and brings it to your conscious mind. You can say, you know what, I'm not going to gain weight if I mindfully have, a scoop of ice cream. It's okay. Right. I can, and if I do gain a little bit, I'm going to learn it's going to be okay. My body's going to regulate. So we have to start displacing these negative things. So you're naming that emotion, feeling it in your body. Where am I feeling this emotion? Is it the pit of my stomach? Is it in my heart, my throat? Letting the emotion run through you, but, and then giving yourself self-compassion, because this isn't your fault. Right. Sure. Just saying, like, right now, this is really hard. So just putting a hand on your heart instead of plowing forward, trying to ignore the feeling, stuffing it down. This is hard for me right now. And what do I need? Maybe I need to talk to somebody. Maybe I need to, like, for me, I've been playing the ukulele lately when difficult emotions come up.
That's so fun.
It is. It's really fun. It's like this great four-string instrument, but just like, learn to be playful, lighter with this. And I think the thing that I find so amazing with my work is clients come to me and they're freaking out because they're having trouble with binging, right? They're doing the diet culture thing, and then they're going binging. So they'll like restrict. Right. And then all of a sudden they'll be like, it's the end of the day. I deserve a glass of wine. Inhibition goes down, appetite goes up. And then all of a sudden they find themselves eating everything in the house, and they're freaking out about it because it's, binging is scary. It really is. And when people, been diet culture, it's kind of one or the other. But what's so fascinating is we don't work on the eating habits. We work on, let's do those things that you've been putting off until you lose the weight. Let's book that trip. Let's, take that class. Let's change your career. Let's work on that relationship. Let's, find that person that you want to be with. Let's do those things now, not putting it off. And as they start, and let's work on your relationship with yourself and how you feel about yourself, and the inside out work, that stops. And all of a sudden eating is normalized.
Right. It's a lot of what I always talk to women about is we lose control in that judgment after we've made a decision. It's not like actually eating a scoop of ice cream. That is so much less harmful to our body than the total beat down that we give ourselves for eating the ice cream, for going off the rails, for doing this, for not being adherent, for not being compliant, for not having willpower, all this. Like, that's so much worse, both psychologically and physically, I think, than just like making a decision, maybe looking at it in a little more object, like what you're sort of saying is to try to be neutral and try to look at these feelings from an objective, perspective, instead of letting them drive us so far one way or the other, so that we're constantly in this stress. Nobody can see us. We're on podcasts. So I'm like, my hand talking is not being very effective, but this, like, I think everybody identifies with this like super frazzled kind of chaotic feeling when we don't get the eating quote right. It's like, we know better. Our intellectual self is like, we know better than doing this, but we can't help ourselves, and we're not allowed, all the not allowed, should, can't, won't, supposed tos, and it's a crazy making space. I mean,
it is. And can we take the morality of eating away? Like, food's not a moral issue. It's an issue of fueling your body and taking care of your body and pleasure. Right. Well, take the morality away.
Well, I would love to. I mean, I would love to. The problem is we go to the grocery store and the end cap has a bunch of guilt-free snacks. And, you know, like, I mean, it's right there. Like the food industry and the diet industry wants us to think it's a moral issue, because that's how, when they can brand their products as, you know, heart healthy and good for you and long live the, you know, fat-free chips or whatever, like it's makes us feel like we are better people for participating in their business, which is a business. And I say this all the time. I know you know this, but like, you know, diet culture is a business model. It's not healthcare. It's not mental health care. It's not eating disorder prevention. It's not public health, anything. It's a business, period, full stop.
Yeah, in a way, I mean, if you want to vote with your dollar and pay that, and just putting my nutrition hat on, don't buy so much, don't buy the processed food. I mean, I was in Costco yesterday, you know, the keto bars, whatever the hell that is, right? These keto bars, 0 carbs. And I'm thinking, how do you have something sweet with 0 carbs? It was just bizarre. But you know what? I bought 8 pounds of oranges and I bought 3 pounds. I mean, I like fruits and vegetables a ton. And my partner, my fiance is a master gardener. But, you know, if we don't buy into those things, I mean, what, like you have an apple, there's no label on the apple other than maybe where it came from. So I think and just to, you know, I mean, I think gentle nutrition is important. So I think focusing more on whole, unprocessed foods, things that don't come in packages. I'm not saying, you know, you can't eat the things that you enjoy, but if we are like, okay, these foods, I'm not fueling that industry, don't buy any of those, you know, keto, low snacks, whatever that is stuff.
Yeah.
Buying more, you know, those things that don't have those labels. I mean, I remember I started as a dietitian, everything was no cholesterol. I'm like, Cheerios never had cholesterol. It's a plant food.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
They labeled, you know, jelly beans are fat free. Well, of course they are, but that doesn't, like, so what? But they, you know, the Heart Association can put a big check mark on the bag or whatever.
Yeah, it's
and not to villainize processed foods, because there are a lot of people, myself included, that utilize processed foods when we are on a budget or when we have time constraints or access limitations, you know. And so it's not to say that, you know, I just want anybody to get the wrong impression that like, that's a bad thing to do. But I do not buy the processed foods that say guilt-free on the cover. I do not buy the ones that say, you know, this is the slim chips, or I won't buy anything with the word skinny on it. You know, I just won't play into that. I mean, and you're right. We are voting with our dollars every day when we continue to propagate this narrative.
Yeah. And I think a big piece too, to talk about too, is can we get away from the most important thing about you is the way that you look. Yeah. And I think that's like for women, I was so amazed when I started this research, you know, when I started looking at body image, and honestly, I went to get my PhD because I wanted to be the next Jillian Michaels. I wanted everybody to be skinny. I was skinny myself. I was good at helping people be skinny. And then I started through my PhD looking at the insidiousness of the diet industry and the media. And, you know, the media wants to make, you know, they want you to be on this constant spiral, and realize that for women, we're taught that the most important thing about us is our looks. And that's a double whammy, both in terms of if we don't fit in with the skinny ideal. And then, you know, again, if we're aging and we're getting gray hair and we're getting wrinkles and, you know, and our body is shifting and changing, can we get away from the fact that, you know, you're a divine being here. You are made of sunlight. Like, we're not supposed, it'd be really creepy if all the 70-year-old people looked like 25-year-old people. I mean, it really would sort of, that's not normal. That's not the normal human sort of timeline, but we are made to believe that we need to apply, eat, participate in every single product that will keep us looking like thin 25-year-old people, you know. And it's never enough. No, never enough. It's never enough. It's never ever enough. And, you know, I loathe is a better word, before and after pictures. You know, generally speaking, I just think it is just playing into this narrative of like, you know, the thin ideal and everything. But what I tell people is, you're already right now somebody else's after picture. Like, you may not know who that person is, but you think that you're not enough, you're not worthy, you're not, you know, whatever the ideal is that you have in your head, but somebody else would be thrilled to be like you right now. And so the person, you know, what the point of that is that the person you're looking to, or the sort of vision, this, you know, fictional character that you're going to be, the future version of you, like somebody else is already that person, objectively speaking. And
they're looking to the next person. Like it's just never going to be enough. So how do we make ourselves be enough? Like shy of, this like having mantras and I am enough and writing I am enough in my journal and, that sort of thing. Like what are some really tactical ways that we can build that self-worth? Like what do you have any advice about? I'm sure you do have
Yeah, of
advice about that.
course. Yeah. Well, the first thing is like right now you're enough. You're good enough. You're smart. I mean, you are the youest you. So that, the first step in my book, Rock Your Midlife, is authenticity. There is no one youer than you. There is no one who can be better at being you than you. And so what happens is, and I love that you're talking about these before and after pictures, because we lose the present. And what happens is we're, when we have all that's not good enough, it's like we have this heavy backpack filled with these I'm not good enough rocks. And we're taking those rocks into our future. And that's what's showing up, instead of saying right now in this moment, I'm perfect. I am perfectly imperfect. I am just who I am right now. I mean, so I think a lot of it too is we haven't talked too much about bringing the mindfulness piece in, and bringing the observer in. When you use those I am statements, make sure that those are good things. I am capable. I am enough in this moment. I mean, if you're listening, say, right now, and it's the truth. You are enough. You are enough. You are like Dr. Seuss says, you are the youest you.
The youest. I knew somebody said that.
Yeah. And just, but that's, mindfulness is experiencing what you're experiencing, why you're experiencing it. And what happens, and then you can understand a little bit of the neuroscience of what goes on here with the not enoughness. You have something called the default mode network that runs down the middle of your brain that separates the hemispheres of your brain. And it's constantly scanning your environment for what's wrong with you and how you fit in. So particularly if you're on social media, and social media can be supportive too. That's how we met. And there's some great supportive communities, but the social comparison is something that we evolved to utilize when we were living in little tribes of 30 to 50 people. And you would look around and say, okay, this person's the basket weaver, and this person's the hunter, and this person's the fire, starter.
Yeah,
the
sort of clan mentality was actually life-saving. I mean, at that time,
to know, where do I fit in? Where do I fit in? Where do I stand out? But now where we're, in touch with millions of people, and we're doing the social comparison, and when we're comparing ourselves to other people, and we're not, there's always somebody you're going to see, and they're not as good enough, I guess, if you're comparing. But what if you just compare yourself to you? And I'm just going to be the enoughness of me. I'm just going to, and I have people in the book, Rock Your Midlife, write out a list of what's awesome about you and put it in your wallet. It's something you can do right now. Write down like what's great about you. And I give people lots of different tests that they can take to learn about where's your genius. So what are you awesome at? What do you love to do? What would you do all day long? So, there's all of these wonderful, character strengths that we can focus on, generosity and kindness and compassion and, humor and gratitude and all of these powerful things. And, Barbara Fredrickson, who's a psychologist, talks about broaden and building these positive emotions. Maybe like do a media fast, do a mirror fast, just be the youest you. If we all were the youest you, like, I don't want to be you, Maggie. You don't want to be me.
Right. Exactly.
You said, like you haven't met a woman who really loves, I'm just the youest, I'm the meest me I can be. And I'm totally loving it. I mean, for years, I just hated myself. And I would think, well, when I get the next degree, I have more degrees than a thermometer. I have a, undergraduate from an Ivy League. I have a master's degree. I have a PhD. And I'd be like, then the next thing, it's like, we're always, pursuing when I have that thing, when I weigh so much, when I'm in the size, when I have
this much money, when I have
all of this stuff. But the problem is that when we're bringing that enoughness mentality, we are attracting that, and that's what shows up in our future. And it's interesting. I have a client right now, and I'm just like, you need to go on a no complaint challenge. You need to, like, if you are listening to us right now, you probably have a roof over your head. You've got electricity, you've got food. Like, let's be grateful and feel like I have enough. I am enough right now in this moment. And what happens, just going back to the mindfulness conversation, when we are mindful, when I'm just, noticing that I am just here and I'm in this body and it's a beautiful sunny day, even though it's 11 degrees below zero, but
that's a
with
cold one. Yeah.
that's a cold one with the wind chill. I'm happy. I'm just happy in this moment. Mindfulness is where it's at. You turn off that default mode mechanism, and it's not just woo. It's scientifically shown they actually beep people throughout the day. And when people are mindful, you turn off that, who am I? Am I okay? That comparison stuff turns off. Stop comparing yourself to other people. And you notice you're doing it, just like, whoa, I'm doing that. And if you need to get off the Instagram or change your account around, I have a friend who has a wonderful thing called circle of, I'll have to send it to you so you can put it in the notes, but there's wonderful things to look at and focus on out there. And also another great thing too is, be in nature. Notice that you're part of nature. Like the dandelion doesn't want to be the rose, and the rose doesn't want to be the tulip, and the deer doesn't want to be the fox.
Right.
It's just, why can't we just, and the Chihuahua doesn't want to be the Great Dane,
Right. A lot of this is what you're describing is like some element of self-respect. I mean, really is we sort of like back to what we talked about at the very beginning about treating ourselves the way we would another person, and having a more positive, dialogue with ourselves. And I really like the idea that you mentioned of sort of giving that inner critic like another name, like another persona. Like that's not really me. All those doubts and fears and anxieties about stuff is like, I have to acknowledge it and I need to like unpack that a little bit, but that doesn't define me. So I can give that character like another name and like talk to them in a very neutral way instead of taking on that feeling all the time, like wearing it like a coat. I like that, because we do need to just cut ourselves a break.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about the fact that you exist at all, and the chances of you existing are like 400 trillion to 1, that, your parents did it and here you are, and you're living in 2022 in this crazy world. And you've got 32 trillion cells and even more trillion cells in your microbiome, everything just keeping you alive. Like being alive, being here is incredible. Like it's incredible. Like why, like you were saying, why waste another minute dieting and beating yourself up?
Right. Because when it's over, and it will all be over for us at some point, life is finite. Like, what do you want your legacy to be? Seriously, I hope that at my funeral, people have something better to say than, oh, she really stuck to her macros and her apple rings all closed every day, and she wore a size whatever pants. Like that sounds stupid to even say that, right? Like you would never really say that, but that's kind of, we behave as if that's like the pinnacle of fulfillment.
Yeah. So let's misbehave. As you were talking, I'm thinking like another thing I talk about in Rock Your Midlife is let your good girl go. Like we're taught to be good. Like good girls do, follow these rules. Like and
they say yes to everything, and they put everybody else's needs first, right? That's kind of what we're taught. We're the kind of, cultural hostesses, if you will. That's what I feel like. We're supposed to serve and be caretakers and, sort of maternal figures to everybody around us. And we're not doing it to ourselves.
Yeah, well, we feel guilty when we put ourselves first. And so that's something I work with a lot of clients, when they think about this sort of the subconscious immunity to change, when they put themselves first, they feel selfish, or, they feel like I have to be available 24/7 for everybody. And you've got to put your own oxygen mask on first. If you're not, taking care of yourself, you don't have energy for anybody else, and you deserve your love and affection. You deserve to enjoy your life. And so, yeah, I think we need to stop beating ourselves up. And also just, honestly, I've been a dietitian since 1993, and weight loss is so boring. It's just so boring.
Like, why are we still talking about it? Really? Like, let's be honest. Why is it still the narrative? I mean, it's boring. You're right. It's just boring.
And it's so ironic that it's keeping us small. It's keeping us small. It's keeping women disempowered. By giving our power away, by saying, I'm not okay unless I follow this diet, I follow these rules, I do these things. And like, can we just like, And food too. I mean, like, let's put food in its place. It's pleasurable and it's important for our health and well-being, but it's not everything. It's not it should not be our total focus. I mean, like I said, I used to fall asleep thinking, oh my God, how many calories did I consume today? As a dietitian, I'm like, was I a good girl or a bad girl today?
Yep. Did you close your Apple? Well, that was before the Apple rings, way before the smartphone apps and MyFitnessPal and all that garbage. But yeah, well, I really appreciate your perspective because I think, culturally there's this idea that midlife has to be a crisis, that's kind of, that's just, we buy a fancy new car and we color our hair and we do all this stuff as a sort of reinvention. But what we need to really pay attention to is how we already exist and how we show up. And we don't need to change. We don't need to become something else or become the 25-year-old version of ourselves. Like, it's okay where you are. And it's actually a kind of cool place. Like, I'm going to say, I got diagnosed with cancer 2 months after my 40th birthday. And I was like, well, these 40s aren't really shaping up that great. But I actually just turned 45 and I'm like, you know what? I think this is going to be the decade where I finally find, peace in being, like you said, imperfectly imperfect, whatever, perfectly imperfect, and being the most me version of me. And I hope I live beyond 50. Whether I do or don't, I feel like I'll, have met some level of personal fulfillment by recognizing that I already am enough. I already am me.
Yeah, it starts now. So, I mean, feel personally fulfilled now in the present moment. And then you carry that. I talk about something in Rock Your Midlife called destination vibration. So thinking about what's the emotion that I want to resonate with in my life. And for me, I started doing this right when COVID hit, where I wanted, dancing was like joy, what my metaphor for joy. And I started visualizing myself dancing because I was a dancer my whole life. And, I feel like I attracted this whole incredible life out in this beautiful island of North Hero in Vermont and this amazing man that I'm engaged to. And I just turned 59. And, it's interesting. I don't look the same. I mean, this sort of beauty, radiance, feeling good about myself. I feel so much better about myself than at any other point in my entire life. And I feel like if you're listening, it's about feeling good about yourself right now and then feeling good about yourself the next moment, having that peace, having those things that you want to have in your life, and you don't need to change your weight to get them. It's focusing on something that is completely BS, that has absolutely no bearing on your happiness.
Yeah, it's not a if then or a when kind of thing. It's like, can happen now. You can start acting on that in these little ways with self-compassion, self-respect, kind of honoring our worth, like now when you turn off this podcast.
Right.
So, well, Ellen, I am so glad you came to join me today. Will you let everybody know how they can find you? Where's the best place to find your work and how they could perhaps interact with you if they'd like to?
Just Google the Midlife Whisperer. So I am the only Midlife Whisperer I know of. And I am the Midlife Whisperer on Instagram. I think Facebook, I'm Dr. Ellen Albertson. But if you Google Midlife Whisperer, my website will pop up. You can contact me through that. My book's available on Amazon, Rock Your Midlife. And I would love to support you wherever you're at midlife. And if you're feeling, if you are feeling down, that's okay too. I mean, self-compassion, I think we need to get away also from this sort of toxic positivity where we have to feel good and happy and positive all the time, but you hold your difficult emotions. Self-compassion is emotional regulatory technique. So if you're struggling, it's okay. There is actually a dip around age 47 across 132 countries where people do dip a little bit because maybe they feel like, everything I wanted and thought I could be, well, maybe that's not going to happen, but then there's an upswing. So I'm here to help you with your upswing.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. And I'll put all of your information in the show notes so you guys can go over there and click right to Dr. Ellen's page and see all her work. Thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
I knew you would love that, right? Yeah, it's really tempting for me to just get in this big nerdy neuropsychology wormhole with her. I didn't want to get too far into the weeds with that, but hopefully it really made a lot of sense. This idea that we have to appreciate and respect and have compassion for where we are right now, because this is it. This could potentially be it. And you can only sort of start moving forward and growing the way that you want to evolve the second half of your life if you're willing to have grace and compassion and respect and appreciation, frankly, for where you've been so far. So Ellen said it so much more eloquently than that, but I'm glad you listened to that episode. I want to remind you, if you are a health professional interested in learning how to adopt a weight-neutral practice for yourself and for your business or your practice, I've got something really, really awesome coming in about 2 to 3 weeks. So you're going to want to make sure you pop over to my Instagram, link in bio, or my website on my Pro to Pro page, all of which are in the show notes here, and get yourself on my health professional community list, and you will be the first to know about what's coming very soon, very, very soon. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed this content. And as usual, I will see you every Wednesday. See you next Wednesday with a new episode of the Eatfluencer podcast. Thanks for joining. Thank you so much for being here today. If you love what you've learned, follow me on social media at Maggie Landis MD, and you'll never miss a thing. You can also check out my website at maggielandismd.com and sign up to be part of our community of eaters. Thanks again for stopping by. We'll talk again soon.